Hey there, everybody. It's Cameron Morrissey coming to you again live, providing you with another management and leadership live Q&A session. Again, it's sunny in my world, and I want to know what it's like in your world. So as you come on board here, go ahead and drop down into the comments section. Let me know where you're tuning in from, what the weather's like over there, and then fire away with your management and leadership questions. Now, if you're coming to this a little bit late, this was filmed at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Tuesday. You can always drop to my Facebook page. In the events section, there's a place to subscribe, and it just drops a little something into your news feed and lets you know about these sessions. I want these sessions to be a resource for you and for everybody out there who's dealing with real-world leadership problems. We can go ahead and deal with those right here. One thing I do encourage is that you drop down into the comments section and you let me know and let everybody know what your thoughts are on the particular questions that you're dealing with today. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but between all of us, we probably do have a pretty good handle on what is going on out there. So as we get some more viewers tuning in, Saeed, good to see you there. As Sunil as well, and then Joey, sunny in Rhode Island, very nice. So Lynn, good to see you here as well. So again, drop down with those questions. Let me know how the weather is wherever you're at today, and we'll start getting to these. One question I didn't get to yesterday in yesterday's live session was how to promote. How do you get an employee of yours, a peer of yours, to promote leadership and inspiration? How do you kind of bring them along? How do you develop a peer? And I love that question. It came from Karen Rose, and fantastic that you're being a resource. You want to lead your people, you want to lead your boss, and you absolutely want to lead your peers as well. Now, first of all, I'd say you're setting a great example. If you're looking to help them out, then I think that says a lot about you and about the example that you set. But what you want to do is you want to encourage them as much as possible to be a resource to everybody. Lynn, Natalie, Kiam, good to see you guys here. You want to encourage them to be a resource. So by doing what you do is you actually ask them to be a resource for you. So ask them questions, ask them what their thoughts are, start giving them some practice in being a resource. A leader is somebody who serves their team, who supports their team in the mutual goals that everybody has set. And so you want to give them as much practice, then encourage them to be a resource to other people. When they bring you complaints, as peers will naturally do, there's plenty of things to complain about in the workplace. And when they bring you complaints, ask them how they would look to fix it, and then encourage them to fix it themselves. You can do a lot through that encouragement, and that would really be the track that I'd take a look at doing there. I'd look to tackle that as much as possible. There we go. Sorry, I had to adjust the camera here just a little bit. Zainab, good to see you here as well. And so that's what I would encourage. But you can absolutely work them that way, that peer of yours, and try to get some of those leadership traits on. Now, when we talk about, thank you, Guy, I appreciate that. Now, when we talk about extending leadership down to your team, it's the same sort of principles that apply. What you want to do is, in employees, you want to frame the question back to them. When they bring you concerns, ask them what they would do about it. And that opens up the discussion for you to explain what you think they should do and gives them a little bit of exercise in their muscle. If you want to promote leadership traits, if you want to promote inspirational traits, you have to just ask those questions and then direct the answers. And it opens up that discussion. They understand why you do what you do, why it's important that they handle things in certain ways, and that's really helpful to them. Now, when we talk about extending that to your boss and promoting leadership with your boss, you move back more into that peer role sort of thing, where you ask them advice and kind of try to lead the discussion. Cece, good to see you here. Peter as well. So you want to encourage them a little bit more. Ask some questions. When they come up with a decision, ask them why they came up with that decision. Don't be, needy about it, and don't bombard them with questions like that. Gracie, good to see you here. Mosin, you want to try to emulate it as well. You can show leadership to your boss by the way that you handle yourself. We become those that surround us. I think there's an old adage that you become just as successful as the 5 people most closely to you. So you spending time with other people will naturally help that leadership along as well. Brenda, I'm glad you enjoy them. Natalie, excellent as well. I'd love to get a question down here too, because I'm just wrapping up some of yesterday's questions that I have. So if you have something that's been bugging you this week, by all means, drop down into the comments section, and we'll start discussing it amongst all of ourselves here. Bebs, good to see you here as well. But when you can lead your boss is I guess really the essential thing. So you can suggest to them what they should do in certain situations that might work based on your experience being in the trenches, shall we say, that you can do there. And then ask them questions and kind of lead them along with what the thought process is that they should be displaying. And that will really help you out as things come along. The other question that we have is in regards to motivation. And I almost on almost every one of these videos that we get asked about motivating our employees. A couple of things that you want to do on that. You want to notice successes as much as possible. You want, hey Rania, good to see you from Beirut. You want to talk about successes. We talk too much about problems and what's going on wrong in our organizations, and we don't talk nearly enough about successes. If you want to start motivating people, make them part of a successful team. 99% of the time, okay, 95% of the time maybe, you're successful and your people do a great job. It's only that small percentage of time that we look to focus in on with those problems. So focus on that much larger period of time, and that will really help you out as far as motivating your team is concerned. Saeed asked the question, how to improve communication skills. And for those that have tuned in for a while, communication is a big passion of mine in leadership. I really think it's the cornerstone of great leadership. You need to be able to convey ideas, and you need to be able to get that feedback. So a couple of things that you want to focus, two things that I'll say you focus on to improve your communication skills. The first thing is you start asking more questions. Don't just give directives when people come to you with things. Ask them one question every time they bring you some piece of information. It can be, what do you think we should do in that particular case? It could be, why do you think that came about? Tell me more about this particular process. But ask questions. That will open up the dialogue between you and the other person. That'll naturally help your communication skills. The second thing you want to do is you want to listen. One of the biggest things that we struggle with in leadership is listening. We are so busy trying to handle all of our stuff that we don't have enough time to listen and gather the feedback. That feedback that you get from listening gives you a better understanding of the situation. When you have a better understanding of the situation, you will make better decisions. So you need to listen more. So the two naturally go hand in hand. You ask a question and then you actually listen to the answer. Now, the trick to listening actively for most of us is simply to maintain eye contact. I know I've done it, I'm sure you've done it, and I've seen many other people do it, where they're having a conversation and they're looking at the next person that they're going to be talking to, or they're looking out the door, or they're looking somewhere else, or they're pondering some other question that they're dealing with. Don't do that. Focus on the person that's talking. So ask questions, listen better. That's the two keys to really getting better at your communication skills. And so that's what I recommend from that case, Saida. Natalie asked the question, how do you tell your boss his staff are unhappy and looking for new jobs? That's a great one. I appreciate, from a leadership perspective, I appreciate your interest in even letting the boss know. A lot of times when people reach that point of looking elsewhere, I mean, they're tuned out. It's over and it's done with. I'd actually find a good time, something like a Friday afternoon, actually, when the cliche version is that you let people go. But I'd pick a good time, something like a Friday afternoon, and I'd come into their office and I'd just close the door. And I would relate to them that you're concerned and you thought that it would be important for him to know that a number of staff members are unhappy in their work and are looking elsewhere. And you want to bring a few specifics. You don't want to call people out, obviously, but you want to bring up a few specifics that are causing people to leave. And you can leave them generally vague, as far as, some people feel that you aren't as interested in their success as you are in your own. Some people feel the organization is not going in the right direction. Some people feel that, whatever those particular instances are, but bring a few things that are problematic that you are hopeful that he can try to address. And you can, depending on your leader, offer some advice on those sorts of things. They don't like the way that the organization is going. That's a great opportunity for a team leader or a team meeting where the leader can stand in front of everybody and let them know that this is the direction they're going. Get more transparent, give them more information so that people don't have to be fearful of the way the organization is going. That's a way for them to step up. The concern, of course, is that the leader's going to take that information and not do anything with it. But at least at that point, you've done something. But I'd pick your right moment, close the door, and just mention it that way, that you're concerned and you thought it would be important for you to bring it to their attention that they do this. The next question comes from Lynn. Thanks for that question, by the way, Natalie. The next question comes from Lynn, and that's, how do you deal with a boss who does not allow you to manage your team? The meddling boss, the boss that kind of usurps your authority in all of those cases, a lot of times, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt first. A lot of times they feel like they're doing a good job. They're noticing something, they're taking action on it, and they're leaving you to all of the tasks that they've given you to handle. So they feel like perhaps that they're doing the right thing. And even if they don't consciously recognize that, a lot of times this is subconsciously what's in play with everybody. And so what I recommend in those cases is you first have that discussion with them. And you say, hey, I know you're just trying to help out, and I know you're trying to intercede here, but I think I can be more of a resource for you if you give me that information, and I can disseminate it to the team, and you can get to all of the tasks that are on your plate. Make it a situation where it's about them, and it's about you helping them, not about the negative effect that they're having on the team and on you in your development and in your leadership. So make it a way where it's a resource for them. The second thing to do is to really try to up the communication with your team. This can be one of those things where a bad thing leads to a good result. All right? There's no reason that you can't take charge of what's going on after the boss has left. The boss is likely not in your area constantly. They've got other things going on. So up the communication with their team. If they have concerns, bring them to you. If they have conflicting, messages, that's a great opportunity, and that'll be a great, specific thing that you can bring up to your boss. But if they have those, bring those to you. But if you open up those feedback doors, if you open up that communication, then it really can be helpful to you in this particular case. That's one of those things where communication really smooths over so many problems, because when something comes up in relation to the boss and them doing something to usurp your authority. Right. Sorry. Taco asked the question, I work hard, but often I feel guilty that I could do more and even better. Is that normal? Taco, that's absolutely normal. I think a lot of the people here share your same concern. There is always more that we can be doing, and that's part of the curse of all of this technology that we have, is we now have a better idea of all of the things that we could be doing in our work days. And what you need to focus in on is you need to focus on not doing everything that's on your plate. You need to focus on doing what's important. So get better at prioritizing. That will help you smooth over all of those, that guilt and that concern. That's one of those main things where people take a weekend, people take a vacation, and they feel guilty. They feel like they need to check in because there's always more that they could be doing. However, if they have that security and that sense that they've handled the most important things, the 80-20 rule, where 20% of your tasks make up 80% of your production, if they've handled that 20%, they feel much more comfortable taking a day off, much more comfortable taking a vacation, and they will feel less guilty. So Taco, you're not abnormal in that at all. I think most of the people here would say that they felt guilty on certain occasions when they feel like they could have done more for work. But focus on doing what's most important. Don't focus on doing everything. That would be really the key. Ella Shrifa asked the question, how do I ask for a salary increase? And I'm glad that this got asked. I've answered this offline a few times, and this gives me a chance to answer it online. Salary increases are tough because you're hired in the larger your organization, the less likely it is that you'll be able to negotiate a salary increase, first and foremost, because they've hired you into a particular job. They have a number of people in that particular job. and they have that set salary range, and they don't have much wiggle room. They have budgets that are set ahead of time, etc. So that's the first thing, is if you're in a very large organization, the likelihood of a salary increase is far less likely. Now, the good news for you is, what I always propose for people is, don't ask for a salary increase. Ask for a promotion. That's the best way to get a salary increase in an organization, is to be promoted. So have the discussion with your boss about what your career goals are, what they think that you need to work on, they think that, the people that have these promotable spots, the traits that they have. Work on those things, and that'll give you that salary increase. Now, if you do work in a smaller organization, or you do work in an organization where this is possible, what you have to have is demonstrable metrics and measurements of how you provided so much more value than your peers. You're in a battle, in this case, with your peers, and the value position that you're in, and what you do on a regular basis to provide value to the organization. So you have to be specific. I exceeded my sales forecast by 50% last year. I have brought on 20% more clients than anybody else in the organization. I have trained more people. I have answered more calls. I have done all of these things. But frame it in a way that shows that you provide value. What you also have to do in those cases is explain how you are going to continue to provide that value. One of the ways that you can say, I doubled what my sales forecast was last year. That's great, but what are you going to do for me this year? Because I know that doubling came from one account. How are you going to find me another huge account? So that may be a question that you run into when you're asking for a raise. But know in advance that the larger the organization is, the less likely it is to happen. My big advice is to seek out a promotion. Don't seek out a raise, because with the promotion is going to come the raise. And the last thing is if you do seek a promotion, do seek a raise, have demonstrable facts to back it up about how you provide so much more value than all of your peers, than everybody else, and how you are going to continue to provide that value. So Jesse, you asked the question, I'm looking for strong leadership foundation. What books can you recommend for starters who want to be a leader like me? Well, to start, I always go back to the foundational ones, and truthfully, these foundational ones are classics, and they are what everybody comes back to over and over again. Whether you are a director, a vice president, a CEO, you come back to How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. You come back to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. You come back to, Good to Great by Jim Collins, if I'm not mistaken. You come back to the 1 Minute Manager. You come back to Who Moved My Cheese. All of those ones are classics that you can go to. I recommend, truthfully, going to Amazon.com, going to the business and leadership section, and looking at the bestsellers on there. Look for the ones that have been on that list for more than 5 years, that would have publication dates back for 2010 and before. Those are the ones that have the staying power. Those are the ones that resonate with people on a regular basis, and you'll find one that addresses your specific needs. Like I say, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is absolutely my favorite one of all of them. So if you pick one, do that one. But relating and being able to persuade people is also a good reason that everybody goes with Dale Carnegie and How to Win Friends and Influence People. So great question, Jesse. I'm glad you asked it. Thanks. Khalid asked the question, how to balance between quality assurance and employee motivation. Asking too much for quality sometimes upsets their morale. Khalid, the way to tackle that, absolutely. When you ask too much of somebody, just like when your boss asks you to do too much, it's frustrating, and it's frustrating for your employees. The way you conquer that is you help them and support them with tools to meet that quality guideline. So it may be a little extra training. I want you to do this, and I want you to have the high quality, and I'm going to give you the training to do it. It may be simple checklists. I'm a huge fan of checklists. They seem very basic, but there's something that what will often happen is people will post it up on their cubicle wall with their little checklist. They may not check it off every single time. If it's very important, then they should check it off. There's a reason that rocket launches have checklists, and airplane takeoffs have checklists, because they're important enough to warrant doing that. If what you do is that important, then they can do a checklist every single time. Or you can just do it to start out with, demand it. that they fill those out. But you can absolutely ask for more quality, but find a way to help them reach those quality goals that you have. Then there won't be a morale issue. Then you're being part of the team. Then you're really helping them out, and that's what's essential here. Lynn asked a follow-up question on there. What if he just doesn't care? What if the boss just doesn't care? If the boss doesn't care, then what you need to do is you really need to look for your leadership and your inspiration within yourself, within your peers. You're on your own to a certain extent. What you ask of your boss is going to have to be in the simplest terms humanly possible for them to take action on it. Lead them. You can lead them to water by making it sound easy, making it sound like it's going to be something that's successful. But if your boss doesn't care, it's a really tough spot to be in from an ongoing perspective. However, you can seek that opportunity where a boss that doesn't care is likely to give you some more empowerment if you explain to them how they benefit from it with less work and with more success. So it becomes an opportunity if you want to take that opportunity to learn more and to have that empowerment, and just find a way to wiggle that in there just a little bit. You know what, do you want me to take that off of your hands? I'll go ahead and bring you an update in an hour. Yeah, sure, that's fine. And he goes and gets another cup of coffee. It's a tough spot, and it happens in today's organizations where people really check out. But that's what I would do there. Odong Mike, hey, good to see you from Uganda again. He's stayed in the same organization for 5+ years, and at times he wants to join other organizations. How does one deal with this feeling without guilt, and how can a team leader maintain fire in his belly to take the organization to greater heights? Odong, I really appreciate that. That's a great question. I'm going to tackle the motivation part first, and then I'll tell you when to leave an organization. What you need is you need greater and greater challenges. Everybody will fall into a rut in their career at some point. The question just is how you deal with that rut. The best way is greater challenges. Try to set a new sales goal. Try to work on something. Those challenges can be developmental as well. It may be that, I use salespeople as an example all the time, but I'll flip to line workers. Is there another task that you can master? You've done what you've been doing. What else can you do? What else can you provide? What other heights can you achieve in an organization? If you can't find those challenges, and if you can't find that motivation, then you might want to look elsewhere. The two reasons to leave a company are when you don't have any more promotable, your career is stalled out, where there's a ceiling on what you can attain. So you're not going to be promotable. That's one reason to leave a company. The second reason is you're lacking development. You're not learning anything else. Learning things, getting better at certain skills is essential for your constant career development. Those are the two reasons that I look to leave a company: lack of promotability and lack of development in your own skills. Those are the two reasons to leave. But look for new challenges, Mike. Look for new challenges. If you find them, and I'm sure they're there in that organization, you can get that fire back in your belly a little bit and kind of kickstart your career. Last thing, actually, I'd like to mention in regards to that is I'm a big fan of that work-life balance. And one of the reasons I'm a big fan of it is what I might also recommend is cultivating a hobby outside of work. If you can kind of train your body to get passionate, and your body and mind to get passionate about something outside of work, a hobby, whatever it happens to be, then you're more likely to be able to bring that passion to work as well. There's that interchange. We talk work-life balance as if work is encroaching upon our life all the time, but our life can have a really big impact on how much we enjoy work and how much we bring to our work as well. So also cultivate those passions. That'd be another piece of advice. Okay. So follow up from Natalie on that one. He brought his 3 top performers in and had a one-on-one. It depends on what comes out of that one-on-one, whether he, is going to do something about it or whether he's calling out those 3 top performers. Hopefully something comes out of it. If nothing comes out of it, you've done your piece, Natalie. If you beat this too much, he's going to start being concerned, and what it is it's defensiveness on his part that he's not doing anything to address this particular area. But I'd say you've done your point. If he's brought 3 people in for a one-on-one, if I was giving him advice and he got that feedback, I would tell him to bring in his top performers and discuss what's going right, what's going wrong in the organization, where there's problems, where they think there could be improvements, and how he could help them do a better job. Those are the 5 questions I'd recommend asking. Whether he asked those or not, I don't know. But it's a good sign, as long as he didn't bring those people in for the wrong reason, that he's going to do something about it. As a new higher level manager, what would be your advice to introduce yourself to the workforce? Khalidra is asking the question. You oversee middle manager all the way down to floor personnel in factory environment. So if you're coming in as a high level manager, to introduce yourself to everybody that's in the organization, is I would have departmental meetings where you do introduce yourself to the organization as much as possible. What your background is, what you're looking to do, and what your thought process is on certain things. What I would really encourage you to do is I would encourage you not to make any decisions right away on things. I would introduce yourself, I would introduce your background, and I would mention that you are going to be going around and doing individual sessions to kind of pick people's brain. You want to learn what's going on. You want to learn what's going well, what's going wrong. And then, similar to how I mentioned before, those 5 questions, I would ask your direct reports, those right underneath you, but then I'd dive a level deeper as well, and I'd pick and choose people who might want to meet with you and answer these 5 questions. What is going well in the organization right now? Where there are problems, where there are opportunities, and what you can do to help. And those are the 5 questions, like I said, that every leader should ask. And if you ask those questions and take some action on it, you are ahead of 95% of everybody else that's out there, because you get such valuable feedback from that. So do that with your direct reports, but then dive down all the way down to the frontline staff. Ask for volunteers, people who want to meet with you for a quick 15 to 20 minute session. And that would be a huge benefit to you. That would introduce you to the organization, and it would let them know that you want to hear these things. Every leader needs that feedback. The last thing you want is for people to have known there's a problem festering and not bring it to your attention until it's an emergency, or to notice opportunities and let your competitor take advantage of them instead of bringing them to your attention. So that'd be my advice, Khalidra, and I hope that works out well. Congrats on the new position, by the way. Star asked the question, hi Cameron, how do you help an employee who is overwhelmed with the task and it starts to affect their performance? So much so they verbally say that they are only working on this one task, then walk out of the room frustrated. What you want to work with, a Star, on that is you want to work on those basic time management skills of focus. I was pleased that they were working on one task and not trying to do 8 tasks all at the same time. That's a good sign. Work on focusing on one thing and getting it off of their plate. A lot of the overwhelming that goes on in organizations today, and it's very prevalent in the leadership ranks, is we all have a to-do list of 20 items and 10 of them are half done. Well, what if we had 5 of those items done and then worked on the remaining 15? We would feel far less overwhelmed. We would have our mind far more focused. So focus is one of the key things. The other thing is to help them find ways of prioritizing. And that's where you step in as a leader and you say, when you give them a task, what's on your plate right now? Okay, I want you to do this one first. Or no, you're right, that one's more important. I want you to finish that. If you're done with that in the next hour and a half, then start this one. But get in there just a little bit with them and try to work on that. So that'd be my advice on that, is really just, I think if you get more personally involved in separating their time out, that'll help a little bit. Now, if this is a training thing, then that'll identify those things as well. If you get in there and start working with them a little bit more, if you say, okay, I've given you this and it should take an hour, and they come back to you 3 hours later and it's still not done, well, then that'll give you those specific instances where they need to be retrained. And take them through that training. You want to be clear on those expectations. You want to support people, but you also want to find them a position that they can be successful in the organization. If they aren't successful in this position, if they can't do this after multiple times of trying, then you have a duty to their peers and the organization to move them and transition them into something else within the organization. And that's just the reality of it, and that's the tough part of leadership. Maybe it's within your own organization. You can leverage their strengths, find what they're really good at, and do that. Or you can transition them into another department, or sadly, you may have to transition them out. And that's the tough part. Ahmed asked the question, can you explain a way to increase the number of sales to my sales team? I don't pretend to be a salesman. I don't particularly enjoy doing the selling part of any particular job, as lots of people do. But Ahmed, if you want your salespeople to do better, you want them to work on their communication as much as possible. The more information they get from their prospective clients about their wants and their needs, the better they're going to be able to align those wants and needs with your product or your service. So it's all about communication. It's all about listening. Almost all the great salespeople and negotiators will tell you that the less you talk during a sales call, the better. So have them ask those questions, have them find out those wants and needs, and then they can act on them from there. But communication is key. A lot of salespeople are very successful bullying the client, but that's not necessarily always best. Some people are great at it, but what is certainly going to work every time is communicating more. That's really key. Lonnie asked the question, how can you keep morale up when the company has gone through 4 org changes within 1 year? And this is something that is dealt with more and more. Leaders look for the silver bullet of reorganization. It is something that's going to solve all of their problems. It's a very fancy exercise. It gets a lot of press for them within the organization. It sounds really high level to do a reorganization. The problem is they rarely understand all of the processes and all of the functions that they are reorganizing, and that's why almost all of these reorganizations fail, is because there's just an incredible amount of knowledge that you need to have to structure it the correct way. And so I'm not a fan of reorganizations at all. I think you should work with what you have, because there's a lot of unknowns that you will almost never be able to ferret out from everybody. Now, if you're caught up in a situation where you've done a bunch of reorganizations, what you want to do is you want to be transparent with people as much as possible. There's that trust issue of I'm going to be doing something, and then it's all just going to go for nothing because it's all going to get reorganized. So be as transparent as possible with them as to what's going on. Give them the information. Don't let them feel like they're in the dark. There is a fear of the future for them because they don't understand what's going to happen. So the more information you can give them, the more transparent you can be, the more you'll conquer that fear, and the more they'll be able to continue to keep going. The other thing that you want to do is you want to focus on the overall goals of the organization. So you don't want to focus on the reorganization itself. You want to focus on organizational goals. We want to satisfy customers in this way. We want to increase our sales this way, that sort of thing. So you focus on the reason for the reorganization, and it goes down a little bit easier. It's a sugar coating on the medicine for people, but keep them rallied around shared goals, and that'll help a little bit as well. But be transparent, keep that communication up, and then focus on the goals. The goals don't change in most organizations. If you go high and up in the goals, the goals don't change. How the organization functions may very well change, and that's something that you just have to deal with as a leader. I know there were a ton of questions. I'm thrilled with all the questions we got here. I'm going to spend a little bit of time after this call going through the comment section, and I'll look to answer as many of those as I possibly can. I really appreciate everybody's comments today. I'm going to do another session next week. So until then,